You know the deal, usual shilling, like, comment, subscribe, rate, share, whatever you want. Let's start it. Warhammer the Old World got something interesting. It was a Q&A that happened after the end of the stream, so after those two models were presented, and we got some pretty nice details about Warhammer the Old World and some other stuff. First of all, there is no plan to bring back Mordheim yet, but there's the possibility of it happening if things go well. Next, we have a document before release showing base sizes, so we will know what base sizes goes where and what have you. Cavalry gets bigger bases, as do most infantry units, so things are getting upskilled for these two. Third, there's gonna be rules for Chaos Dwarves, but they won't be a faction, and they probably won't get models for a few years at least. And it sounds like they're not simplifying stuff. Said it's not the best way to start on your wargaming journey. Don't know what that means. By the way, I'm reading this off a Reddit post that got all the questions and answers, so let's continue. Said there won't be starter boxes like the Horus Heresy one. This one was a little bit of a point that I didn't like, but it's a little bit misleading. What we won't have is a starter set, for example, like we have for 40k and the 10th edition or its previous editions where we have Space Marines against something. We might instead get army boxes, kind of the same way of the Harbingers that we got a preview of during this whole Warhammer Fest thing. So while there might not be a starter box, we can get armies, and it is probable that we will get army boxes, same as the boarding patrols, combat patrols, and whatever you want. Someone came out and said, so there's no starter boxes. He's still shaking his head, whatever. That's related to what I said earlier. They'll make boxes to make it easy to jump in. Of course, like the combat patrol, start collecting starter set, whatever you want. Army books. Focus is on factions in the old world. They'll then reassess whether that's the way they should carry on. No promises of an army book for every faction. So that kind of means that some factions might get screwed over. Possibly. Nothing clear just yet. May have upgrades compatible with old kits, but far more likely to get new kits. So there might not be an upgrade for older units to fit in with the old world. We're just gonna have to deal with new miniatures at this point. Still pretty okay. Dogs of War, not in their initial focus. So we can't really see mercenaries just yet. But there are chances in the future, at some point, hopefully. Then we have Lizardmen won't get a re-release of old kits. That would be quite unfortunate after they got, new kits just recently. New kits plus a document showing base size needed. New stuff for Age of Sigmar unlikely to be ported back to Warhammer Fantasy. No re-release of old kits like Old Saurus, but we'll give base sizes to use the new ones. So we know that that's gonna be a little bit of a problem from a compatibility standpoint, but still it is pretty interesting. Katai in the very future. So yep, there is plan for Grand Katai. Can't wait for that. What's the best thing we can do to prepare? Asked someone. And the answer is paint your minis, but don't put them on bases unless you're very confident. So we're gonna have to wait and see the base sizes. New units for Bretonia that we haven't seen before. So there's more up ahead than what we have already seen. No plans to bring back the old Forge World monsters at the moment. There should be rules for them. Good. Forge World was gonna be expensive anyway. This is interesting. This Q&A opens a bunch of possibilities and stuff out there. That we might see bigger, grander boxes in the future. For armies, of course, we're not going to see anything like two armies fighting each other. No problem. What's also interesting is we don't really know if it's going to go the way of the Horus Heresy, where they have a giant box that they're trying to pawn off to sell off. Which would be interesting and a nice idea, but there's too much plastic and investment to make one for every faction. But probably one for a handful of factions that can then be changed between them and others could work. For example, elves, with minor modifications to go from high elf to dark elf, even though their aesthetic is completely different. No, scratch that, that's a bad idea. Still, it is a pretty nice and interesting thing. I know that Mordheim is a skirmish game that's still being played by people, still being kept alive, even though not officially by Games Workshop. And yeah, some people might be upset that they're not getting it, but there is hope that that might return depending on how good the old world does. And the old world will do as good as Games Workshop tries to maintain it. Of course, prices are also an important aspect that will affect the game, but I'm expecting prices to be the normal Games Workshop way. They cost way more than they should, and you're probably gonna have fun with them. But they'll look good because that's the standard for them. Yeah, somebody once mentioned that would be the best way to have the old world survive and be sustainable, to have lower prices so people can get into it. Everybody knows that's not going to happen, but still, it is a nice fantasy. What other interesting aspect is that I like the thing with the Chaos Dwarfs. They're not really a faction for, getting into, but they will have they will have rules and models maybe at some point, which means we're gonna be safe from the resin and probably metal miniatures that many people have, though I wouldn't throw them away. What else is there? Katai in the very future is also very nice and interesting. I liked seeing Grand Katai in Total War Warhammer 3. I think it's a pretty fun faction. Really good. Then to get to have one of those princes as your own miniatures, that's gonna be nice. Though I expect them to be bigger. Lastly, the whole army book thing, it's interesting because it's experimental at this point. They're not really sure if they want to go the army book for every faction, the same way they used to do, or if they can find a way to combine stuff and make stuff easier. In truth, there is always a possibility of having a bloat of books, like, 40k had with the 8th edition and the others before it, some to a better or worse degree. But still, there is that possibility there that is quite frightening and unpleasant. And it creates more problems than it really should. It's still not going to be a simplified game, so that's going to be interesting to see how it evolves alongside with what they're trying to do to see if it works with the army books. Combined, well, that's going to be an interesting experiment, and it's going to be one we're going to have to deal with for the beginning. Hopefully, it will be a good one from the start. And there won't be any need to change anything. But we'll have to see. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.